What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Rad Chad Show. Today we have got a review for you of Exit the Game, The Secret Lab. Now we are coming hot off the heels of what we consider to be possibly the best escape room game in Exit the Game, The Abandoned Cabin. So let's see if our second foray into the Exit the Game series was as good, if not better, or maybe worse than The Abandoned Cabin in this review right now. Okay, so first of all, before we get started into the full-fledged review of The Secret Lab, I just want to say I am a man on a mission. We are looking to review virtually every single escape room game out there because I am head over heels for these games, absolutely love them, and just want to consume all of them. So we have done all of the escape room, the board game games, all of the unlock games. Now we're working through the Exit the Game series. We've done a review for each of those, and I will allude to a lot of those. So if you want to see any of those reviews, definitely swing over to the YouTube channel and check them out. And if you want to see any of the future videos, you know, I don't like to make plugs all that often, but click that subscribe button because these are hot on our docket. These are the next reviews that are coming down the pipeline. So if you're an escape room game fan like I am, we've got tons of content for you guys. But without further ado, let's talk about The Secret Lab. Now, Exit the Game, they won the Spiel des Jahres, so that is a huge award and a big vote of confidence for a lot of gamers like myself who are trying to figure out which one of these games we should start playing with. And typically speaking, if you like one of the games, you're going to want to play all of the games in that specific series. So I already knew I liked escape room games. I just went ahead and bought all three in the Exit the Game series right off the bat. Now, we played The Abandoned Cabin. We thought it was phenomenal. So understanding sort of where we're coming from and where our, I don't want to call it biases, but where our expectations were is important because The Secret Lab, I don't want to say it disappointed us, but it definitely didn't live up to The Abandoned Cabin, and it kind of fell smack in the middle. There were some people who gave the game a 4 out of 10, some people gave it a 5, some people gave it a 6 out of 10. Sort of the median or the average of our group came out to be a 5 out of 10. Now, for us personally, I wouldn't normally give my score this early in the review, but for us personally, what a 5 out of 10 means is it was an okay experience. We neither enjoyed it nor did we dislike it. It was just somewhere dead smack in the middle, almost in like board game purgatory. And I think the reasoning for that is because my wife and I played the escape room, the board game, and I don't remember if it was the second or the third scenario in that game, but there was a virus mission that had an basically identical theme to The Secret Lab. Now, this theme is essentially a very science-based theme where you'll use things like the periodic table of elements. You'll be talking about diseases. There will be, I don't want to call them potions, but there will be, vials with liquids inside of them of different colors and stuff like that. And you sort of feel like you're in a laboratory-esque setting. And I think that one of the main reasons why this one fell a little bit more flat for our group in specific was because that mission and escape room, the board game, just brought a lot more context and story and rhyme and reason to why you were doing the various puzzles than what we've experienced in Exit the Game. Now, when it came to The Abandoned Cabin, because this is sort of a trend I'm now seeing with all of these games in the Exit series, it didn't matter because the puzzles in The Abandoned Cabin were excellent. Now, you got to realize that The Secret Lab is a click more difficult, at least in my opinion, and I think it's the general consensus, than the game The Abandoned Cabin. So we understood it was going to be a little more difficult to begin with. I think for us personally, we like our puzzles on, I don't want to call it the easier side, but we like to feel accomplished. We like to feel a sense of progression as you're moving through the game, and we don't like to rely on clues. Not to say that we relied on too many clues or didn't have all that much progression in The Secret Lab, but again, to have it be more difficult, to get hung up, to be frustrated from being hung up is never necessarily a good feeling, and we did have that with The Secret Lab. There was one clue in specific. This is not a spoiler, so this is just going to help you out. There's a little cutout, so when you open up the box, you'll see a little component that you're going to use at some point in the game, and you've got to punch some things out of that component. And what I would strongly encourage you to do is not what we did, which is use the little punch outs to try to figure out the puzzle. You're supposed to use the actual piece where you've already punched things out and now there are holes. That's what you use to solve the puzzle. And I don't think the game made it all that clear. Looking back on it, it's clear absolutely now looking back on it that we were supposed to use that instead of the actual tokens per se. But boy, that just led to a lot of frustration. There was also a typo in the expansion, which may or may not impact people's progression with the game. But between those two things mainly, it really just, it made us stumble. And when you added the fact that we stumbled and we had a hard time getting back on our feet with some of these puzzles, it really just drains a lot of the fun and the immersion that you're having with the game. You tack that on with the fact that there's really no rhyme or reason for why you're doing these various puzzles, and it wasn't a good mixture. It's also worth mentioning that anytime you play these escape room board or card games, it's tremendously subjective based off of your individual play. It's not like all of these other board games where you can play it literally 100 times, and yeah, you might have a bad experience here or a bad experience there, but the vast majority of the games that you played were enjoyable, right? Maybe you have one bad experience. Well, the other 99 were exceptional, so you give the game a pass based off of that one bad experience because it was uncommon. It was the outlier, right? When it comes to an escape room game, if you have that one game out of 100 that was a bad experience, you can't replay these games, especially with the Exit series, because they're fully destructible. So I think it might have been the case with our group where we just had one of those times out of 100 where things weren't flowing for us, that we just had a bad experience with the game. It could have been the game's fault. It could have been our fault. And I think that that's unfortunate because we'll forever look back at the Secret Lab and we won't remember the good that the game had to offer, which there was some. At the beginning of the game, we felt like we were rocking and rolling, and my wife was really figuring out some puzzles, and I was pretty impressed with how they were actually built. But then we hit those major obstacles and those major roadblocks, and Tom Vassell even had a similar issue. If you look at his spoiler review, he ran into the same issue that we had. So I don't think that we're the only people who are going to experience this. We just might be in the minority. I don't know for sure, but we'll look back and we will see the frustration more than we'll see the enjoyment. And not only that, the reason why I'm calling this more or less a forgettable experience is because I won't remember the other things. I'll look back and I'll see the escape room, the board game mission with all of its story and its context and its better puzzles, and I'll look back and I'll view that as the better experience than the escape the game, the Secret Lab. And that's really unfortunate. It's also unfortunate that I can't rebuild this game and hand it off to a friend or something like that because it's definitely destructible. And a lot of these other games are either A, not destructible, or B, you can reprint out components. And I give the game a pass for that. It's a nitpick because the game's inexpensive. It's only $12 or $15. So it's really not that big of a deal. It's so much cheaper than it is if you were to go play an escape room game in real life. But even still, it's a bit of an unfortunate issue. I talked about in the abandoned cab. I think they also missed an opportunity to build in sound effects through an integrated app where you could, integrate some of the puzzles into the app as well. So overall, between some of my criticisms with the abandoned cabin, which there weren't many, but things like the app and missed opportunities I had just mentioned, and then the fact that we got stumbled on, it was just a bad experience. Our expectations were high, and again, I don't think it quite lived up to those. Just the overall experience of the Secret Lab didn't go quite right for us. I don't think it is a bad game by any means. I think a lot of people will enjoy this game. Just keep in mind, maybe search on some of the forums, try to avoid some spoilers, look up some of the things that might help ease your experience so that you don't run into the same issues we had, and I think you'll have a much better and hopefully memorable, whereas for us, it was a forgettable experience. So we would give the game a 5 out of 10, and that was Exit the Game, The Secret Lab.
Thank you for watching the Rad Chad Show. Until next time.